Welcome once again to our continuation of worldviews and the different worldview perspectives. We have just been talking about the African traditional perspective on worldviews, problems, and solutions. And now I want to invite you to the Islamic worldview, how the Muslims think about worldviews, what the problem is in the world, and how these problems can be sorted. The Islamic worldview, and to the Muslims, the problem is that we have forgotten who we are. Muslims believe, of course, those of you might ask what Islam is, and we will talk about that later. They believe that we are all Muslims and they should all live in submission to the will of Allah. Now the problem is forgotten who we are and forgotten the will of Allah. And for them, they think God is one, He is a sovereign, His will is divine, and they don't believe in what we call the Trinity. They also believe that humanity has abandoned the divine will, and that's the problem. Humanity has abandoned the divine will. They do what they are not supposed to do and live what they are supposed to do. And to them, their God is called Allah, and God is the master. And they say we are slaves. He is the creator, we are the creatures and the creation. And we have no right but to obey God and therefore conform to His will. Of course, Muslims will tell you that Islam means submission and submission to the will of Allah. And now another problem that comes in there very quickly, unlike Africans who talk about this harmony, is the problem is with humanity does not want to submit. Now what's the solution here? The solution is to conform to the will of Allah. They believe that by knowing His will, word, will, and obeying it is one way of appeasing or creating harmony with Him. They have some things that you do to appease the God. One of them are the 5 pillars, what we are calling the 5 pillars of Islam. And to them, one of the 5 pillars is the creed, confession of faith by repetition or recitation of the word witnessed. And for them, they say there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is His prophet. Now, having said that, they are not just saying it as a routine, but they are finding a way of submitting to the will of Allah to avoid problems in the world, to avoid problems. Number 2 is the question of prayer, sultah, regular rituals, praying 5 times per day, facing Mecca. And you see, for them, prayer is not just communication, prayer is submission. Prayer is submission. And to them, this prayer as a way of submission helps them to solve problems that they feel they are in the world. Number 3 is the question of zakat, giving to the poor. When we are looking at problems and solutions in the world, we looked at the UN, and the UN was talking about one concept, that the world is in poverty, and what is required is to give so that the world gets out of poverty. To the Muslims, giving to the poor is part of one of the ways of solving the problems that they find in society. And for them, they say that giving to the poor, like prayer, is not just submission, but helping those who are in need is part of solving the problems. People who can be given, according to the Muslims, are the poor, the slaves and free slaves, new converts, free slaves, the collectors, for example, those who collect for the will and purpose of Allah. And the issue is, 1, how do we help solve a problem? Now, in African tradition, we looked at appeasement. In Islam, this is one way of appeasement, solving problems that exist. And to them, ignorance to the will of Allah is as sinful as a problem is solved. Number 4 is fasting, observance of the days of fasting during the entire month of Ramadan, and the pilgrim to Mecca, which they call the Hijjah. These 5 pillars of Islam are ways of solving the problems that exist in the world. And they believe that once humanity exists in conformity with the will of Allah, then humanity will not find themselves in problems. Now, you as a medical professional, you are going to meet these people. You as a development or business personnel, you are going to meet all these category of people, and they are going to advance their worldviews. There are 3 things that I told you right from the start. That when worldviews meet, the first thing that happens is, if you are not careful, is they clash. The second one that can easily happen is compromise. And the third one that can easily happen is conformity. So where do you fall when you look at the Islamic worldview? And how best can you influence the Muslim who is thinking that I am sick because I have not submitted to the will of Allah and is not taking medicine? A person who is coming to you that I am poor because I no longer have taken time without going to the mosque, and I have not observed these 5 pillars. Worldviews at play. I hope you will take time to reflect on this and internalize them. Thank you very much.